Hello and welcome to World News on TVP World. I'm Marie Cato. European leaders voted overwhelmingly to rearm the continent through a bold proposal pushed through at an extraordinary European Council summit on Thursday. And while there was unity on mobilizing roughly 800 billion euros to shore up the continent's military war chest, cracks emerged for ongoing support for Ukraine as Hungary voted against any military support for the war-torn country.
European leaders voted overwhelmingly at an extraordinary European Council summit on Thursday in Brussels to rearm the continent. This bold proposal was spearheaded by European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and aims to mobilise roughly 800 billion euros so member states can shore up their military war chests. The main instrument as part of this proposal includes a 150 billion euro investment mechanism. Member states will be able to apply for a loan for a parcel of this money to shore up their defensive capabilities. The aim there is that member states can also send some of this to the Ukrainian front lines. Another part of this proposal is EU member states loosening up their fiscal rules. This is so countries can spend roughly 1.5% of their gross domestic product on defensive capabilities. Previously, if countries did this, they fell foul of the EU's strict fiscal rules, such as Poland, which has been targeted by an excessive deficit procedure. But we know that countries such as Germany last night warmed to this idea and it received unanimous support. The 27 EU member states pushed it through. This is why the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said that this is a historic moment for European defence. And while unity was found on this measure, Hungary came through with its threat to block any military support from the EU to the Ukrainian front lines. We heard that country's Prime Minister Viktor Orban doubled down on his defence in a radio interview this morning. He said that any support of this kind could put at risk those ongoing ceasefire talks between Ukraine and Russia and could throw Europe's economy into the wind. But we know that the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, his team will travel to Washington to discuss ceasefire efforts with US President Donald Trump and his team. So many are wondering here in the Belgian capital how last night's decisions could impact these ongoing discussions. Angela Skujins from Brussels for TVP World.
During a press conference in the Polish Parliament, Minister of National Defence Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz emphasised the importance of Poland being prepared for any scenario in the face of rising security threats. The official also discussed Poland's approach to security, including the importance of keeping Russia at bay and bolstering Europe's defence capabilities. This is what he had to say.
Poland must be prepared for any scenario. Poland must arm itself, increase its defense industry potential and build strength and social resilience. These are our foundations, our pillars. We are acting according to three vectors that I presented in the Sejm this week: keeping Russia as far away as possible, building a strong transatlantic alliance and strengthening Europe. And the third one will likely be discussed the most after the Prime Minister's meeting, after the summit in Brussels. Good news and an important debate.
Donald Trump is not a neutral mediator. He's pressuring Ukraine while being lenient towards Russia, said Oleksiy Haran, a research advisor from the Democratic Initiatives Foundation.
It's really strange to see how favorable President Trump is towards Putin and how unfavorable he is towards the victim of aggression. You know, basically he's not even neutral mediator. He's now pushing on Ukraine, blaming Ukraine, while, Russia is fine. And this is really, really strange for me. Look, because the situation is like we have aggression, and actually Russia said and continue to saying that they are not going to stop. They don't want ceasefire. They would like to keep all the territories of Ukraine that Russia annexed. They would like to get rid of any security guarantees for Ukraine. Basically, Russia do not want to stop. Today, actually this night, we had huge bombardment of all the Ukrainian territories, including in Kiev, in capital, where I'm staying. So, and in this situation, Mr. Trump is saying, okay, we are not going to limit Mr. Putin, but we are limiting defense capabilities of Ukraine.
In Serbia, students have been demonstrating against the expansion of an expo center in the capital, Belgrade. This is the latest protest in a growing movement that has seen almost daily demonstrations and marches since a deadly roof collapse sparked public anger back in November. A video posted by the Green Left Front Party shows crowds outside the venue of an urban development meeting that was discussing plans to expand the expo center by 800 hectares. On Wednesday, farmers driving tractors led a column of anti-government protesters in Novi Sad, where 15 people were killed in November's roof collapse disaster. Activists blame the deaths in Novi Sad on what they say is corruption and lack of accountability. President Volodymyr Zelensky has called for a sea and air truce, as well as additional pressure on Russia. This comes after Moscow launched yet another attack on Ukraine, targeting energy, gas and civilian infrastructure across the country.
As Russian strikes on Ukraine continue, President Volodymyr Zelensky took to social media to call for a truce.
The first steps toward establishing real peace must begin with forcing the sole source of this war, Russia, to stop such attacks on civilian life, and this can be effectively monitored. We need silence in the skies, a ban on missile strikes, long-range drones and aerial bombs. We also need silence at sea, real guarantees for safe navigation. Ukraine is ready to walk the path toward peace, and from the very first moment of this war, Ukraine has sought peace, and the task is to force Russia to stop the war.
Zelensky's statement was made in response to the latest missile attacks on many regions of Ukraine, including Poltava, where multiple residential buildings were damaged, leaving 2 people wounded. The strikes also hit Kharkiv, where 9 residential buildings and at least 35 private homes were damaged on Friday. At least 6 people suffered injuries.
Emergency service units immediately arrived at the scene, where they found 10 garages and 5 cars on fire. The total area affected was 200 square meters. Also damaged was an apartment on the 2nd floor of a 3-story building, from which the rescuers saved 8 people.
The strikes follow last night's attack on Sloviansk in the Donetsk region, as well as the port city of Odessa, where at least 3 houses caught fire. Footage released by the State Emergency Service of Ukraine shows local firefighters dispatched to extinguish one of the burning houses. Critical energy facilities were also damaged in the Russian strike. According to Ukrainian Energy Minister Herman Harushchenko, all necessary measures are being taken to stabilize energy and gas supply.
French-made Mirage 2000 warplanes have taken part in repelling a Russian air attack on Ukraine for the very first time. This is according to Ukraine's Air Force. Ukraine's air defenses intercepted 34 out of 67 missiles and 100 out of 194 drones launched by Russia overnight. This was possible thanks to anti-aircraft missile units, electronic warfare systems, mobile fire groups, as well as fighter jets, including F-16s and French Mirage 2000s. The first Mirage 2000 jets arrived in Kyiv in early February as part of a military aid package announced by French President Emmanuel Macron in June 2024. One person died and 2 others were injured when a highway bridge that was being demolished collapsed in southern Belgium.
A tragic accident occurred in Belgium at around 2 p.m. on Thursday as a highway bridge under demolition collapsed near La Louvière, killing 1 worker and wounding 2 others. Initial reports indicated that 1 person was missing. But at around 3 p.m., emergency services recovered the missing victim and attempted to resuscitate him.
So when we arrived on the scene, the person was considered missing. Our divers went straight into the water to find him, but unfortunately he was found a good 20 minutes later. As it turned out, the person was then taken care of by the emergency doctor and the ambulance on site. And unfortunately, our efforts were not rewarded.
The Labour Inspectorate in Belgium has opened an investigation into the accident.
For the past 100 days, thousands of Georgians have been protesting against the ruling Georgian Dream Party, demanding new elections and the release of imprisoned demonstrators. The unrest, sparked by disputed parliamentary elections last October, has seen opposition groups accuse the government of electoral fraud and authoritarianism. Protesters are also calling for a return to a pro-European path, particularly after Prime Minister Irakli Kobakidze's announcement in November that talks on EU accession would be delayed until 2028. The ongoing protests have led to clashes with police with accusations of violence and torture and resulted in hundreds of arrests. Despite the demonstrations, the ruling party has shown little sign of backing down, recently passing the first reading of a controversial law restricting foreign influence on civil society. The protests have led to international sanctions on Georgian leaders, but they continue to mobilize, with more rallies expected to disrupt the capital Tbilisi as the protests mark their 100th day. A World War II bomb was discovered on the tracks leading to Paris's Gare du Nord terminal, prompting a major security response. The bomb, which was found earlier this week, led to the evacuation of the area and the suspension of train services. French authorities have launched an operation to safely defuse the ordnance, which was reportedly discovered during routine track inspections. The find has caused significant disruptions to travel, with thousands of commuters affected. Gare du Nord, one of Europe's busiest stations, is a major transportation hub in Paris, with trains arriving and departing to destinations across the continent. The discovery of such a dangerous relic from the past serves as a reminder of the lasting impact of wartime explosives, still being uncovered more than 75 years later. Severe flooding has swept through Spain's Murcia region, forcing authorities to activate the Special Civil Protection Plan. The situation has left schools closed, roads impassable, and caused widespread disruption across several municipalities.
The regional government of Murcia declared their plan on Thursday afternoon due to the intense risk of flooding from heavy rain. As a result, schools were closed in 5 municipalities and several key roads were blocked.
It's a chaotic situation, and we've never experienced a rain situation like this before.
By 6 p.m. on Thursday, emergency services had already received 448 calls related to the storm. The flooding has caused significant damage, with many areas completely submerged, including access routes to the city of Lorca, which remain impassable. With emergency teams still working to control the damage, the flood waters continue to pose a threat.
A South Korean court has cancelled Yoon Suk-yeol's detention warrant, paving the way for the impeached president's potential release. In a ruling on Friday, the Seoul Central District Court accepted President Yoon's petition to cancel his custody. The South Korean leader, however, faces serious criminal charges that could result in life imprisonment or even the death penalty if convicted. Yoon, who has been in detention since his arrest on January 15th, is South Korea's first sitting president to stand trial in a criminal case. In the latest episode of TVP World On the Record, Jakub Jaworowski, Poland's Minister of State Assets, confirmed that Poland wants to cooperate with other European defense manufacturers. The officials stressed that Poland is already part of several European supply chains, but it aims to localize more production, particularly of large caliber ammunition.
One issue, apart from access to finance, which often pops up in discussions about the European arms sector, is the fragmentation of the industry in Europe. So what is your position or the government's position on this? Should Polish state-controlled firms be part of some European consolidation?
So definitely we would like to cooperate more with European companies. And as of now, in some aspects, we are already parts of supply chains, right? One of the companies that are overseen by PGZ is a very well-known TNT and explosives producer, so they supply throughout the world and also to the United States, right? So in a sense that is already happening, but at this very point, in some aspects of production, for example, large caliber ammunitions, we want to localize as much production as possible, right? As it is now, large parts of the production happens in Poland, but some things need to be important. So the objective now is to localize it. So we need to, again, and we need to balance it with the needs of the military and the security needs, simply put.
And that's all for now. Thanks for watching. And for more news and features, stay with us on TVP World. Goodbye.